Hello, and welcome to Like a Boss. It's me, myself, Olu, and
Chinasa, and
no, I want that Breakfast Club introduction where they're like, "Hello, today we have a special guest."
Okay, we're gonna bring homie in the building.
I want you to introduce yourself, you know, because sometimes in life, like, you just have to introduce yourself.
Okay, that's
no,
fine.
but it's alright. I can give you that.
Okay.
What does CJ Envy do? So he goes, "Oh, hello, this is the Like a Boss show, and we have a special guest in
the
building, Lillian."
Yes.
Of the graduate group.
Yeah.
Nice for you to meet us or be here with us.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have in store. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
Hey, thank you. How are you doing anyway? Let's get some small talk going on.
No, I'm good. As I was telling you, I didn't come from that far. I'm coming from work. So I work in the city at a law firm. So I'm just coming from Moorgate, not too far. So yeah, Circle Line, all the way here. Fairly simple.
Yeah.
Best weather.
No,
yeah, the weather's really checking us.
This weather is actually getting on my nerves. It's like almost August now. It's been up and down for the past week or so.
Even the whole weekend's like just kind of went to waste now. Can't do anything.
Not ideal. Rain over the weekend, but it's okay.
It's nothing. We're a ray of sunshine in this room, so we've got to act like it. So this is how it goes, Lillian. We usually introduce the show with the bits and bobs of tech news going on in the world. Yeah. So Chinasa, do you want to set it off?
Yeah, sure. I would just start with some news coming out of the medical, sort of digital medical space.
I feel like I know what's coming.
Yeah, no, big acquisition for WebMD. So WebMD, I'm sure everybody should be familiar with it at some point. So
yeah, when you get them them symptoms, you think you got cancer
on your face before you know it, you're dying. So yeah, I mean, this is a hotly contested space. So there are many sort of digital service providers that are focused on the health space and self-diagnosis and that kind of thing. Anyway, needless to say, WebMD is being bought out for $2.6 billion.
What?
Billion.
By who?
They're being bought out by SoftBank, which is I'm not sure if you guys remember when SoftBank bought out AMD, Japanese bank anyway. So they're being bought out by SoftBank, and there's one other company I can't quite remember the name right now. So it's going for sort of about $66 per share. Wow. But anyway, this is huge money. Let's focus on the 2.6 billion because obviously that gives you some idea as to how valuable these companies are.
Wow.
Obviously, I think whenever I just hear news about the sort of digital health space, it always just strikes up an interesting conversation because it's always interesting to find out how people feel about this. So, I mean, let's just put this to you, Lillian. Have you ever been online diagnosing yourself?
No. My brother's actually a doctor. So
you're lucky. You're lucky. Your family's doing well. So you got a doctor in it. You got a lawyer. Hey, you don't need no public services. The rate you guys are, you don't need to pay no taxes.
Yeah. So luckily enough, the few times that I probably do have something wrong with me, I just message my brother. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm dying. And then he says something that is not really that useful, but nevertheless. It usually calms me down anyway, and then I don't worry about self-diagnosis. Only because though, so many people say self-diagnosis is just like pointless, dangerous. You just end up scaring yourself.
But is it though?
So, nah, there was one time, I ate a pear and like I ate a pear and then like my lip, because I'm allergic to apples, but I didn't even know this. Okay. So like I ate a pear and my like lip was swelling up. I was so scared. I checked on Google, blah 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 blah, and I managed to convince myself I had cancer, and I just had to go to bed, and I woke up the next day without the bump.
That's why we don't self-diagnose.
Okay. Right.
But imagine if the self-diagnosis was a lot more efficient or a lot more accurate.
Yeah.
And it could just tell me there's nothing to worry about, blah, 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 blah.
I think it's the accuracy part.
The accuracy. This is one thing that's always difficult for these digital health service providers because ultimately they can ask you a few questions about how you're feeling and stuff. And I think some things are just down to interpretation about how, what's your pain threshold or something. How do you consider something? And then from that is what they get the diagnosis from. Yeah. Really, one thing they would never really be able to go beyond is actual scientific, research. Like they cannot take blood samples and send it over and do some analysis and then send it back to you. They can't really actually come here and check your temperature, or really do anything that's. I think there are some new services being developed where they can send you a, I know with the sexual health digital service providers. So there are now testing kits where they can send you a kit. And you can do the testing at home. I follow
How do you know? But you know what? Yeah, one thing to even sorry to interrupt you.
No,
there is like when you go into a GP, they essentially do the same thing. They'll ask you a certain amount of questions, and then they're inputting this into a system, which then breaks down what you could be suffering from. So really and truly, like if you're able to optimize like this online service in a way where it can just act what a GP, because a GP doesn't know what I'm feeling, and determined by the question that I answer or how I answer his questions, that's what he then interprets what I have. So really and truly, I can see there could be.
The GP though probably has a bit more ammunition in their locker.
He probably has more experience because he sees so many different cases, so he can kind of mentally assess, I saw this last week and it actually turned out to be X, Y, and Z, whereas a computer system probably isn't coded to give that kind of response.
No, but we've got AI, so if machine learning and all of that. So if a human can learn these sort of consistencies or inconsistencies, then why can't AI or machine learning do the same?
No, definitely. I totally agree with that. And really, actually, it's kind of interesting because there was the demo day we attended literally just a few weeks ago, actually. Yeah. And there was a bunch of sort of health apps on show. Health apps to remind you to take your medication, to diagnose cancer early or see whether you're liable. And when I went there and I'd asked them, all right, so show me what it does. And then they just asked me the questions like, do you smoke? How old are you? Do you have all these symptoms? And again, that's where it ends. It's more of a questionnaire and answer kind of thing, rather than any actual scientific research. But regardless, it's big business. There's also Babylon Health as well, which I find to be quite a weird name, but it's also one of the biggest players in the game. And we have Google themselves who are pushing, their information. Obviously, Google has so much information. They actually collects information directly from the NHS. And they push that through their own health service portal, which is called Everyday Health. I think they have another one actually.
Google has a health portal.
Yes,
Google has everything. Like if you want to know, like Google actually has everything.
Do you know about Google Flights? You ever use Google to search?
Yeah, because when you search on Google, there are results that come up straight away. So
exactly.
So okay, that one makes sense.
To be fair, I only just found out about that a few weeks ago myself.
No, that one would make sense to me because I like to fly, so I do see
Google
that.
has them, and even just in here in King's College, the incubator program, there are, like I said, there are quite a few health apps, and I'm sure that's just a microcosm of the wider thing. I'm sure there are thousands of health apps out there.
There are, it's big business.
Wish them all luck.
Boy. I've got some sad news. So the program which allowed every child to channel their inner Picasso. This is Paint from Microsoft. Paint from Microsoft. Microsoft has announced that it's going to be discontinued.
No way.
Yep. Moment of silence for Microsoft.
It is. What is the logical reason behind this?
I don't know. They've replaced it with something called Paint 3D. So essentially, that's like its successor, but it's not the same. It's not the same sort of paint that
they're trying to compete with how you can do things on an Apple Mac computer, or even these days Microsoft is upgrading itself and its laptops you can do things on. Is it trying to compete with that world?
I think so. I think it's basically saying that the current capabilities of Paint is just way too simple. It's way too basic.
But to be fair, Paint is what it is, right?
It is what it is, exactly.
It's for simple cutting a picture, cropping out that section where your head looks a bit big, and posting the rest of it on.
Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I never use Paint. No.
Okay, that's just maybe me.
I do have to admit, I do actually feel like we are past Paint though.
Yeah, we've got Adobe, we've got Adobe Photoshop, we've got all of those things.
Who's really gonna learn that?
But no, Paint is just iconic.
I really should have a qualification in Paint because I've used it so much. As you would know, we worked together. I was on Paint all the time.
I was so stressed out using Paint, but
no, it's totally understandable. They also kicked out Windows Movie Maker, which again is one of those software you would never use until the day comes.
No, I never used it.
But they removed it as well, so another tragic loss over there.
Yeah. Do you want to go in with number 2?
So my number 2 is a bit more of a generic kind of topic. So this is just talking about the Polish startup space. So as you and I would know, just being in the startup world, you probably come across Poland or some people working in Poland or something to do with Poland, really, because Poland is also a hotspot of startup, information in Europe. So totally unrelated directly to startups, but because of the political movements sweeping across Europe, everybody's shifting to the right. So over in Poland, we have their sort of far right party. I wouldn't call it a far right, but let's just say far more conservative than the current or previous system. And this party is now looking to sort of divert a lot of the funding that might have been allocated for startups previously, and they're trying to sort of divert this to other nationalistic causes. So a bunch of, I think about 30 different signatories sent a letter to the Polish government sort of urging them not to essentially remove the lifeline of the startup industry, unless Poland is going to go back to being a bit of a, I wouldn't want to say wasteland in Europe, but of course not wasteland, but essentially just being rid of that sort of startup phase. So really, I think the discussion here is, just how important is it to have government backing in order for business to actually thrive?
That's actually a funny question, because I was speaking to a guy from the KCL Entrepreneurship Institute today who's in the accelerator program, and he's all telling me, like, well, especially in the UK, I feel like the UK even is probably way more advanced than Poland in terms of its startup infrastructure. But even here, like, it's just way behind, because you've got a variety of like different startups, but they're not being able to connect to the funding as easy as it is in the US. And that's why the US's model is like ridiculous, because anyone will just, like, even people like Rick Ross will wake up one day and I want to invest in a startup. Like, what the hell? Yeah, what the hell does Rick Ross know about startups? But because he's got money, and America, they breed people who are willing to take those sort of risks. Like, it's their startup infrastructure is second to none. The UK hasn't really got that. So I could understand why Poland would probably want to, instead of giving it to these entrepreneurs who aren't probably, contributing to the economy as much as they would like to, let's just pull it to our sort of NHS or policing or, national security, ECT. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't. ETC even. I have my moments. Leave me alone. But yeah, I could totally relate. I
didn't even know Poland was known for its startups, to be honest.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when we were doing a startup, we had
two Polish developers.
Really?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they need some more backing then, so the rest of the world can actually know that they're in that startup space.
In that space. Okay, my let's go for my final story. It comes from Netflix, yeah? Netflix and chill. Netflix is currently enjoying a booming subscriber base, yeah? It is now the highest earning app by revenue on the market. It made 153 million just in Q2. Like, just through the app, just through the app. That is way more than the second place. Like, second place is Tinder. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. Tinder is a second. What do you mean?
I assume?
No, they make you pay for those extra swipes. I don't know. I read it somewhere. Apparently, apparently that's what they do. They make you pay for those extra swipes. Don't quote me, but yeah, it's a fact.
If the 100 didn't get you a match, maybe 101.
Basically, but imagine, Netflix's total revenue in Q2 was 2.79 billion. Like 2.79 billion. So the question I'm posing to you guys, what does this number one mean for the app market? And number two, what do you think about the death of TV? Like, I feel like this is just a real sort of like sign that TV is basically almost dead. Like,
just not quite yet.
I think it is. I think
people do still watch TV. Personally, I don't watch TV, so I don't know, because I only have a few select programs that I would watch, and I'll do that from my laptop. I wouldn't bother to actually sit in front of the TV. But there are people who still do genuinely watch TV.
Nah, I guess maybe with like Love Island being on now, like people watch TV, but it's not the same. I'm telling you, it's not the same. It's shifting.
The reason I wouldn't say that Netflix can really be the death of TV is because Netflix is focused on series and it's more entertainment, like, how can I put it? Like, created entertainment, but what happens to news channels and sports channels and trivial TV
You put them on Netflix as well. You put them on Netflix as well.
Yeah, really. Until that day comes, then
that's what they're starting to do that. Like,
and there aren't even any channels on Netflix.
Because that's the point. People watch, like, just how she said, people watch selected TV shows. You have your selected TV shows. So if Netflix was basically to bring those TV shows onto its platform, what then?
You know what? I think a better example of someone that could be the death of TV would be the model that Now TV has. So
I have Now TV.
You have Now TV,
Yeah.
so do I actually.
Really?
So you see, Now
Yeah.
TV is just a platform, which is an app platform, but it hosts all the Sky channels.
Yeah.
As well as hosting the live streamed channels, it also hosts all the episodes on demand. So it's Netflix and TV literally in one app.
But I think
So
Now
you can watch
TV
everything live.
is a Sky
It is a
Sky
Sky
creation.
company,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
definitely.
that's why. But I'm telling you, that sort of model, like, I'm not saying Netflix is gonna swamp the whole thing, but I'm saying that whole Netflix, Amazon, Now TV sort of model is the future.
I think Netflix, first of all, I think their business model, their pricing is also great. You know, £8 a month,
Yep.
something like that.
$7.99.
So it's very trivial and something that people wouldn't think twice about paying, really. And again, you know, it's a rolling contract. Next month, who's really gonna go start checking or trying to cancel? I've had Netflix, and so many months I didn't watch it. I still didn't cancel it, so I'm contributing to the revenue and getting nothing out of it, which is fine because every now and again, I just pull out Netflix and I watch something there. You know, maybe I finish watching it or I don't, whatever. But the fact is, I have Netflix, and I'd rather have it than not have it. I think also there's this social part of it. So Netflix has become phenomenal because people say Netflix and chill, exactly, stuff like that.
It's become a
Netflix
phenom.
So you know, if you go to someone's house,
How
everyone
many people
generally
actually
tends.
do that though?
People, I was Netflix.
Whoa, swear down, bro.
But yeah, like it's just one of those things. If I go to someone's house, I would just expect that they somehow have Netflix. And if someone comes to my house, I wouldn't want to be that guy
bro.
who say, oh no, I don't have Netflix. Like, let's watch YouTube or something. You know what I mean? Like, so
Okay,
I think
that's
there's that
basic.
aspect as well. So they've really killed it in terms of just trapping the market and having people continuously pay them.
Yeah, although people do like variety, which is why people like TV, because on Netflix, as you rightly stated, Netflix is kind of confined to its series and then a few other things. Whereas TV, you have so many channels, over hundreds of channels, so you can flick until you literally find what you like. Whereas Netflix, if you look and there's nothing that you really want to watch, it's the end.
You see, that's me on Netflix. That's why I don't use it, because it's just full of
Choice, too much choice.
No, it's either some new series which is probably so banging and immersive that I don't even want to start it because it's just going to take my life away, or it's full of with like old documentaries from 1999.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people like variety, which is why TV will be around for quite some time, because it offers that variety. And also, you know, these TV companies don't want to give up their rights, so the programs probably won't end up on some kind of online platform just so that they can control.
You see,
the content.
Netflix though, they're doing their own Netflix originals, and actually
They're
I think the
killing it.
reviews are pretty.
They've got a
good.
Will
Like, people are saying
Smith.
them.
They've got a Will Smith film coming out soon.
Oh,
and
I did hear about that.
And I think they're releasing it to cinema.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty big then. So you like Netflix are they know where their niche is and they're really going for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's
I
the
agree.
right thing to do as a business. But no, I don't think it's the end of TV.
No,
All right, guys, we'll leave that one there. So what we'll do now, we'll play our first song of the show. It's going to be Young Bane featuring K-Trap Diamonds. And when we come back, we'll be speaking to Lillian all about the Graduate Group and the good work they do.
Whoop, whoop.
So stay tuned. Sorry. Yeah. Hey, we're back online, guys. Yeah. It's Like a Boss, and we are back. This section will be speaking to Lillian all about the Graduate Group. So let's just get straight into it. What is the Grad Group?
So the Graduate Group is literally a group of recent graduates and young professionals who are helping to get students a graduate job in the city. We predominantly do that through our social media. So we tweet out advice, hints, tips, events, workshops, anything that we can think of that will help graduates. And then we also host workshops every academic year. So for the past 2 years, we've been running workshops at City University, and they've been legal career workshops predominantly. And we've been doing a whole range. So we cover everything from the very beginning when you're researching what firm you want to apply to actual applications. We do a commercial awareness workshop with Capital Moments, who you've had on the show before.
Big up Capital Moments.
Yep, CM. And then we do an assessment center boot camp, which is a real life boot camp.
Hey, that's interesting.
From the moment you walk in to the moment you leave, it's like a boot camp, but in a more safe environment, and we give live feedback there and then. So all our workshops are practical as well, because we don't believe in people just coming to like sit down and then go and you don't remember anything that you actually learned. So we start, you know, the process of getting you into the mind frame of what it is that you need to do. And then our applications workshop, we actually sit down with the students and help them to get their applications together. So it is very one-on-one, very bespoke, and all the advice comes directly from people who have been there and done that.
So what sort of problems do you think, or did you notice with graduates? Like, why do you feel like the graduate group is needed? Obviously, you guys do assessment days and you guys do all these workshops. What are the common problems with graduates that you've noticed?
Because there's so much out there that graduates just don't know about. I know that when I was at university, and obviously, you know, you're deciding what career path you want to go on, you're doing all of this research and stuff. And luckily for me, I am a bit more like an investigator. So I always tell people this: Google is your best friend, and there's nothing that you cannot find on the internet. So I found a whole load of things that I attended and that I did, but then I realized that once I had been through the process and I started speaking to other people, or other people would ask me, okay, how did you manage to get your training contract, etc., it's like nobody knew about these things. Nobody knew about some of the great events that are out there. Nobody knew about some of the organizations that can help you to get a grad job. There was just so much information that people didn't know. And as I said, because I'm fairly ordinary, I would like to believe, loads of people.
I'm not regular.
Loads of people that I knew were just asking me, you know, how I did it. And it was starting to get slightly irritating, repeating myself all the time. So I just thought, how can I get all of this information out at one time to as many people as possible? And then that's when the graduate group kind of formed in my mind. And then, you know, using the connections that I have, I started to get more people on board, and it started to just grow from there. So,
Okay.
Lack of information, I would say.
Lack of information
that grads suffer from.
That is very true.
That is very true. Yeah. To be fair, like I remember, that wasn't even that long ago. To be fair, all of us in this room right now.
And I'm not that old, you know. I only graduated in 2013.
13? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
2013. So I'm a fairly recent grad.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, we all remember being there. It's the final year of uni. There's a few months ago, you're not really sure what to focus on your career after uni, or focus on actually trying to get a good grade at university.
Exactly.
And by the time you come out to do your graduation, it just happens so quickly, and you know, it's August and you don't have a job.
Exactly. And that's another key thing. It all goes so fast that you need to be clued up kind of from the beginning.
Yeah.
Your first year, you need to start laying the foundation. Second year, you really need to be on it. And then third year, well, if you haven't already, you know, hit the home run, then you need to be hitting it in your third year, or like as soon as you graduate. So knowledge is key. Everybody knows that. And when you don't have it, it elongates the process for you. So we are basically trying to bring that knowledge to graduates in any way possible.
I totally agree, especially because like I currently now do recruitment. I set up my own sort of recruitment company. So I do a lot of graduate recruitment, and I see like it's just knowledge. Like they just don't know what to do. Like,
oh wait, so that's talent for tomorrow, right?
Yep.
See, there you go. My investigator ways.
Some may call it investigation, so others may call it stalkerish, but you know. Exactly. So what sort of jobs, like why is it city based, or is it city based jobs that you are trying to debunk?
Okay, so it's city predominantly because I'm based in the city of London.
Yeah.
A lot of the quote unquote high flying roles that people want in terms of law, banking and finance, and consultancy, they are predominantly in the city. So those are the three areas that we're primarily trying to work on, and those roles are in the city of London, which is why we're more focused on that. And then, as I said before, I'm based in London. A lot of the people I know are based in London, so it just made it easier to say that, you know, we can assist with getting a city job as opposed to a regional job, because I have no idea what goes on in the regions. Yeah.
What attracted you to you know, becoming a solicitor in the city for one of these law firms? Can I ask you a question? Do you watch Suits?
Of course I watch Suits.
Is that what the life is like? Like really and truly? Come on.
It's not as glamorous as that. American law is, or how at least it's portrayed anyway. It's a lot more aggressive. It seems a lot more glamorous.
It does.
English law is not necessarily like that. Not to say that it doesn't have its glamorous moments, but it's not the same as Suits at all. Although, having said that, I did have a Suits moment when I started the current seat that I'm in. So I'm currently sitting in litigation. So
Sounds lit.
that's that's where in terms of going to court, that's the litigation department, where you're dealing with disputes, whether it be actually going to court or alternative dispute resolution. And in the first 2 weeks that I was there, actually I had to do disclosure. So that basically meant that there were loads of boxes. There were like 100 boxes that we had to go through to basically try and find this correspondence, which was supposed to help us with our case. And it felt a bit more like Suits, because I could imagine, Harvey saying, they've dumped all this paper on us, and then Mike saying, don't worry, we'll find that correspondence.
Oh my God, I'm getting gas.
Overnight. They work overnight to look through all the boxes and find this correspondence. Then when they get it, it's like the golden ticket, and then they go on to win the case. So that was a little bit more like Suits, but
did you win it?
It's still in the process. It's still in the process.
Free my dogs.
Unfortunately, we can't fit everything into an hour like Suits.
Yeah.
Obviously, it takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only Suits moment I've had. Most of the time, it's not like Suits at all. But I think, going back to your question, what probably made me want to get into law was actually another TV show called, for those who are slightly older, as I said, I'm not really that old, but for those who are slightly older, you might remember a show called Ally McBeal.
Nah, never heard of it.
Okay, well, Ally McBeal was basically this lawyer. It actually turned out she was a divorce lawyer, which I didn't realise until much later on when I actually started to think back to it. But yeah, she was a divorce lawyer. Yep. She made it seem really glam. So when I was like 10, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. But when you say things flippantly, like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Yep. But then as I started growing up, I actually stuck with it. I was like, actually, maybe I do want to be like Ally McBeal. And then, there's Legally Blonde as well. So you get these subtle influences where it's like, maybe law is glamorous. And then I got to university and realised, actually, it's going to be a bit harder than I anticipated. But nevertheless, I stuck with the challenge and was able to, overcome the competitiveness of it all. And Bob's your uncle. Here I am today.
Jeez. And if you could, take yourself back or speak to your graduate self, like what sort of advice would you ever give yourself? Like, you should do this, or you should make use of this tool. I
would probably say network. Because I think a lot of the time when you're going to university, you don't really see it as a networking opportunity. You just see it as, I'm going to university to study this course. Obviously, I'll make friends along the way and, I'll have a great time. But I think I should have probably made more use of the people around me. So, to an extent, I've been able to do that. And some of the people are actually in the graduate group as a result of me meeting them at uni. But I think I definitely could have done more. I could have, been involved in more societies and more things like that. Generally just come out of my comfort zone a bit more and got to know a much diverse crowd of people. I think that would have put me in good stead. So I would probably say, if I could go back and speak to my younger self, I would definitely say, get more involved, speak to people that you don't know, and know as many randomers as you can, because they probably all come in handy at some point.
Probably do.
So networking is key, and you do sometimes have to think of uni as a networking opportunity as opposed to just a good times and a degree kind of opportunity. Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of interesting you should mention societies there. So I was wondering, do you work through any societies with university in terms of getting people?
It's so crazy that you just said this, because I was speaking to my brother yesterday, actually, because my brother went to King's College Uni.
This uni?
Yeah, King's College, yeah.
We're right here.
KCL all day.
KCL, he studied here at KCL for 7 years? Because obviously he did medicine.
That's a bid.
It is a long time to be a student. After 3 years, I was just like, okay. I know, I was like, I don't actually mind graduating. But he was a student for 7 years. So I was speaking to him, and he was basically saying that a good way to get in is actually through societies, because at the moment we don't. We don't necessarily target any specific societies. We predominantly work with the career service.
I see.
And to be fair, so far that's been very smooth. So, you know, City University, sorry, I know I'm on KCL, but
hey, we're not we don't discriminate over here.
Yeah, I know I'm on KCL.
Just have to swear that KCL's the best.
No, just
City University has been like really helpful in terms of just how enthusiastic they have been about what we're doing, and there's nothing that we ask of them that they do not do. So it has been very smooth. But no, definitely in the future we probably will be also targeting some societies, because as I said, I spoke to my brother yesterday and he thought that, you know, that was a good way to go. So yeah, definitely in the future we probably will be. So if there are any societies out there listening, then, you know,
I know the KCO ACS is pretty active. To be fair, I only did my postgrad here, so I wasn't too involved in the society.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like during my undergrad, I was Mr. ACS, so Mr. Out there
low.
In my previous life. And you know, I definitely did organize these kind of events, and I would say, as well as the careers group is good for actually getting the adverts for jobs out there. I think if you want to get that early engagement, start talking to people from their first year, then societies, because nobody is going to the careers department in first year, but everybody is going to the meet and greets, everybody is going to these society functions. And yeah, like I said, I've been there myself organizing. I've also been on the other side trying to get in with societies to sort of go in there and engage with the students. So definitely one key avenue. I mean, society is also very social, so just add them on Instagram, Twitter.
That is very true. No, definitely taking that on board. So I think that will definitely be a strategy for the coming academic year. Yes.
We're sharing little tips over here.
Tips and
Learn
nifs.
something new every day.
But you know, another question actually I had, I was wondering, is there any specific sort of subject groups you're targeting?
Yeah, so as I said, in our first 2 years, it's been predominantly law, because that's what we know best. But increasingly, so on our social media platform, it's not specifically law. It's more law, banking, finance, consultancy, any really good city job that we feel would appeal to graduates. That's what we promote. In terms of our workshops and our events, to date have been primarily legally based. However, this academic year going forward, we're trying to diversify more into the banking, finance and consultancy world. So it's not just going to be limited to that going forward. So in terms of subjects, there aren't necessarily any subjects, because, you know, there are people that do science and then suddenly they decide they want to do law, or people who do, you know, economics but then decide they're going into consultancy or accounting or something like that. So
one thing I've never really understand is like the road or the journey to actually becoming a solicitor or to a lawyer, or, and also the differences between a solicitor, a lawyer, all of these sort of like for example, like last week, I had to get a deed signed, so I had to go find myself a solicitor who was a commissioner of oath, just to literally get his Johnny Hancock, his signature, and that was it. He charged me £10. You know what was the most stressful thing about it as well? For 2 signatures, he didn't even pull it inside the till. He just put it inside his pocket. like how you like whose money? What is this like? But anyways, like my point is basically I struggle to understand the differences between these different law professions, and secondly, like what is the journey that you'd have to do, because you have to do an LB or LBB or something like LLB actually, then you do an LLP or LLPC. Like what is the journey basically?
Right, okay.
You know what, before you even start answering that question, I was just going to expand that whole thing to like the kind of industries that you're focusing on, so the consultancy, banking and finance, because all these industries, they actually have a bit more of a lengthy process than other industries, for example, where you just directly apply to the company. Here you might have to go through some scheme, do this, do that. So please tell us.
As you've rightly mentioned, there are a lot of hurdles, and it can be very competitive, because there are loads of people that, you know, study particular undergrads like law or economics, accounting and finance, etc., and they don't necessarily make it into that particular industry. So I think starting from the beginning, obviously you do your GCSEs, A-levels, obviously the grades have to be quite good. because it will matter as you start applying. You then go to university. You have two choices. You either do a law degree or you do a non-law degree. So let's take the law degree first, because that's what I did. So if you do your law degree, which is 3 years, you then go to law school, which is 1 year. And then if whilst you're at university, or even before you go to law school, you've managed to secure your training contract being that a law firm will pay for you to go to law school, and they'll train you for 2 years in order for you to qualify. That's what the training contract is. So ideally you want to get your training contract in your second year of uni, because that means that as soon as you graduate you can go straight to law school, because it's being paid for. They'll give you some money on the side for you to live, and then you go and do your 2 years of training, and then you're qualified. So that's your ideal position to get the training contract. But obviously there's people that don't get a training contract, so when they come out of university they decide to pay for law school, whether that be the LPC or the GDL. LPC, legal practice course. You can do that.
That makes sense now.
Legal practice course. So you can, if you've done a law undergrad, you can just go and do your LPC. Whereas if you have done a non-law undergrad, you have to do the GDL, which is the Graduate Diploma of Law, which is the conversion course. And then you have to do the LPC. So it puts if you haven't done a law degree, it puts a year on top of what you have to do. So if you have a law degree, it's a bit more straightforward. And then after you've done law school, whether it be LPC, GDL, or both, you then are to do your 2 years of training in order to qualify. So at the end of your 2 years, which I'm coming to now, so I qualify in September, scarily enough. So yeah,
party.
Trust me. So when I get to September, the end of my 2 years, then I'll be officially a qualified solicitor of England and Wales. And then
not Scotland.
No, not Scotland, because Scots have a different law, you see.
Man.
So not Scotland, England and Wales. After those 2 years, you're qualified, and then hopefully the firm that you had been training at, they offer you a job, and then you're good to go. You just continue working, but you're just a newly qualified solicitor. And if they don't offer you a job, then you just have to look for a newly qualified position elsewhere. So yeah, the route is fairly streamlined. Nowadays they're trying to create other ways for people to qualify, but the main route is to go to university, either do your law degree or non-law degree, get your training contract, and go to law school, or maybe you don't have a training contract but you'll pay for law school yourself, and then hopefully you get a training contract at some point in time, or if you already have one, then you go and do your 2 years of training, and then you're qualified. So that is the route. But I think the sticky part is getting the training contract, because obviously, as you can imagine, everybody wants their fees paid for, because fees are tens of thousands of pounds. So, ideally, people don't necessarily want to take the loan. But if you are really committed and dedicated to the profession, then you will take the loan out and do law school.
You probably make it back anyway.
Yeah, you guys get paid ridiculous pays. I'm not even gonna lie. September pay rise, boy. Wait.
Well,
she tried. You know when you try to be modest.
I can't necessarily say that no one will struggle, but I think obviously in comparison to the average graduate in the city, solicitors probably do get paid more than the average person. But I suppose getting the training contract is the competitive part, because even just in that there are so many hurdles that you have to overcome in terms of making your applications, going through all the tests and things that they have, assessment centres, vacation schemes if you do them, which are 2 weeks of work experience at the firms, and then doing your final interviews to actually get the training contract. So the training contract process can be very lengthy, can be very competitive, and that's why we do the workshops to kind of assist people through the entire process.
All right, Lillian, I'm gonna hand over the aux cable to you. I'm gonna trust you with the aux cable.
Okay.
You can play whatever you want to play, Lillian. This is not a trap.
Are you sure about that?
It's not. You can play whatever you like.
I'm
totally not judging
to
you.
the listeners, I did mention a song earlier.
Yeah, what do you want to
but
play,
they weren't
Lillian?
too enthused by my song choice.
Lillian, listen, tell the public what you want to play. What do you want to play?
Okay, I thought we'll play the summer anthem of 2017. See, look, he already doesn't like it.
Oh my God.
And it is very
It is the
overplayed.
summer anthem.
But it is the summer anthem.
We could use some sunshine.
Exactly.
So
it's,
All right, then.
it's a very cloudy day, so we are going to play Wild Thoughts, Rihanna,
Jeez.
DJ Khaled, We the Best,
Bryson Tiller.
and Bryson Tiller. Okay,
Hey,
that's
what
who
an
we're
intro. Well,
We the best music. DJ Khaled.
I don't know if you could take it. No, you wanna see me.
yes. That was Lillian's pick. Thank you very much for that to
You
Lillian.
see, you weren't happy at first, but the smile on his face when he saw Rihanna on that screen.
I'm not gonna lie, yeah, but still, yeah. Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
So yeah, this is the final stretch of the show. Last 15 minutes, and I'm just gonna ask you, how is it running your own sort of venture? Like, what sort of obstacles and how? Wait, first of all, have you always thought that you're gonna like do your own venture? And
No.
no.
The answer to that, yeah, is fairly straightforward. No, I didn't really. When I was younger, I never thought, oh yeah, I want to grow up and be an entrepreneur. It didn't really come about like that. And to be honest, I think probably most entrepreneurs don't necessarily from a young age know that this is what I'm going to do, but as you kind of hinted at earlier, you see an issue and you think of something around that, and then things begin to evolve.
Yep.
And the graduate group has been quite a natural evolution, because obviously when we first started, it was really just an idea. There was nothing behind it, despite all my legal knowledge and things like that. It wasn't necessarily certified legally. But obviously as you progress and more people start getting interested and you need to see more legitimate, you start working on things and it starts to become more like a business setup. So initially, no, I didn't think about becoming an entrepreneur, neither myself or Sybil, who's my partner in this. But as time has gone on, as you've rightly noted, there are some challenges, especially when you're working full-time. It can be very, very tricky, especially in a profession like law, where it can be quite demanding at times, and sometimes some late nights and things are required. It does get tricky. So I'll probably say the biggest thing is time management. Knowing what you have to do and by when. So even when we have meetings, we try and set deadlines for things, rather than just saying this is what we need to do. It's like, we need to do this and it needs to be done by this point in time, so let's set a reminder and let's try and get it done. And it's the same, even just like doing to-do lists as well every week, just writing down that this is the kind of things that we need to be ticking off of our list and trying to get it done. So it's really important to be organized, because juggling the both, it can be really tricky at times.
No, I definitely agree. And especially it being like a social enterprise, like why? Because I always find it a bit when entrepreneurs like set up social enterprises, I always wonder, like, why such social enterprise?
Well, I suppose it's a social enterprise because there's a social element to it, in the sense that there's a social need that you're trying to fill, and obviously it does benefit people. It's not just a case of it being very consumer led, as in we're providing this product, buy it and that's it. There is some kind of ethos behind it in terms of it being good for multiple people. So I think that's the main reason why it's a social enterprise, because it's not just about making profit and everyone laughing to the bank. It is genuinely about trying to assist graduates, and obviously all along the way trying to make sure that the business runs efficiently, because if the figures don't start adding up, then you may have some issues here and there, because it's not a charity. That's the difference between a social enterprise and a charity.
I'm going to ask the DJ MV question.
Yeah.
What are a social enterprise for people out there that don't know?
Oh Lord, you put me under pressure. I have to bring some kind of certified definition to this.
No, in layman terms.
No, in layman terms, I think I kind of described it earlier, in the sense that a social enterprise is usually a venture that has a social good attached to it. But unlike a charity, it can make a profit. But usually with social enterprises, the profit usually goes back into the company in order to make it run efficiently and do even more good than it's already doing. However, depending on how you set up your social enterprise legally, you can still just, make money, and some of it can go back into the company, but some of it can also be distributed to the shareholders as well.
Charities pay like their MDs like millions of pounds anyway, so like even still like you can still pay yourself. So it's not a case of you don't make any money just because it has a social good attached to it. But it does make you feel a little bit maybe better at night time to know that it's a quote unquote social enterprise.
Sustainable. I think sustainable has to be the key word there, because charities are not sustainable.
Well, without their sponsors anyway.
Exactly. Whereas social enterprises, it is sustainable whether or not someone sponsors you. You can still do your mission.
Well, if your costs are not higher than your income, then yes, you can continue to do a social good. But
how do you see this? Let's say, I don't want to ask you such an interview style question, and you don't have to answer this. Let's say in 5 years, right? So you're a fully qualified lawyer.
Solicitor.
Oh, to be honest, they're the same thing, by the way.
Why didn't you put me out my misery? I'm here thinking I'm smart making these.
They're the same thing. Obviously, in the US, just use the term lawyer because they just like it more straightforward. Whereas here we call it a solicitor, just due to historic reasons. But they're exactly the same. A lawyer is a solicitor.
Do you see yourself one day maybe leaving the legal field to focus fully on graduates and nursing them into?
Oh Lord,
where you've been?
I couldn't necessarily say, just because sometimes you have to see how things go. And because I haven't qualified yet, I don't necessarily know how I'll feel with the newly qualified workload and the newly qualified way of life. Because as a trainee, you are slightly pampered and sheltered to an extent. So I couldn't say yes and I couldn't say no. It would just be a case of we'll see how it goes, and that's not because I'm not dedicated to the cause, but it's just because I'm yet to experience newly qualified life enough to say in 5 years' time there's no way I'll be doing this.
Or in 5 years' time you just love it so much you would never leave.
Potentially. But if we could all not necessarily work our full-time job and do something we love and make money, that would be amazing. So
this brings us to a different debate we've been having sort of just recurrently on the show, which is AI coming in. And actually the legal field is, you guys are one of the top career sort of
security.
You're very low in security when it comes to AI taking over.
Low security or high security?
Low security.
Meaning that
high security.
Meaning that AI is likely to take over your job.
AI is likely.
She's ready to argue with you right now.
No, I just don't know how likely that is in terms of sophisticated.
I can see that.
In terms of sophisticated clients, I don't know how likely that is. In terms of your layman, I think it could be likely. But sophisticated clients
it could, because for example. No, because what you're essentially doing, for example, I'm just thinking that in a really basic sort of terms. But if you're going to a courthouse, you just need to know the laws and the situation. So if you import the situation, this is what's happened, and that they would then take it to the laws that are then relevant to that. What do you really need a human being for?
But see, that's the issue. The law doesn't fit scenarios perfectly. And that is the one thing that I've learned in litigation, is that the facts very rarely ever neatly fit the law, and that is where a lawyer's interpretation is required. So even though it may seem as simple as all I need to know is the law and then I'll be fine, if that was the case, then everybody would just be reading up a book or so and then going and fighting their own legal battles. But because it is a lot more complicated than that, I think there is a place for AI, and to be honest, the technology is starting to become a part of law. So even for example, the courts nowadays, you can submit things online. You don't necessarily need to go to the courthouse with your papers, etc. So I think technology does have a place in law, but in terms of sophisticated client base, I don't necessarily think AI would completely take over, because transactions, litigation, it can be so complex that I would find it very difficult to know or understand how AI could fit into those kind of situations.
So you specialize in corporate law?
Right now I'm sitting in litigation, but yes, my law firm does general kind of corporate commercial law.
Another dumb question coming up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you do you qualify do you just qualify as a solicitor, meaning that you can go to a criminal case and you could then go to a corporate? No.
So you did kind of hit the nail on the head, and strangely enough, I am actually qualifying into the corporate commercial department of my law firm.
Okay.
So I will actually be a corporate commercial lawyer.
Okay.
So like mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
nice.
So basically, I'll be doing a mixture of mergers and acquisitions, so core corporate, and then I'll be doing commercial contracts as well. So kind of the best of both worlds. But no, once you kind of specialize, that's slightly you for life. So that's why
you can't be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, so qualification is really key to us trainee solicitors, because it's kind of, once you decide that's the type of law you want to do, it's very difficult to maneuver around. So yeah, if you haven't done any training in criminal law, I could now